My name is Alara Vance. For most of my 34 years, I've considered myself a quiet observer, someone who finds solace in the subtle details of life. I grew up in the flat, expansive plains of Nebraska, a landscape of endless cornfields and wide-open skies that taught me the virtue of patience. That patience and a love for the stories held within the pages of books led me to a career as a graphic designer, specializing in crafting book covers. It's a gentle art, a silent conversation between image and text, and it suited me perfectly. 10 years ago, I moved to Portland, Oregon, trading the horizontal lines of the prairie for the vertical reach of Douglas firs and a city perpetually washed in soft, silvery light. It was here I met Julian. He was everything my quiet life was not: dynamic, ambitious, a rising star at a downtown financial consulting firm called Evergreen Capital Partners. He had a way of making the world feel like an exciting, fast-paced adventure, and I, the quiet girl from Nebraska, was swept away. We married 2 years later, under a canopy of oak trees in the Hoyt Arboretum. We built a life together in a beautiful condo in the Pearl District, with floor-to-ceiling windows that overlooked the steady, gray-green flow of the Willamette River. It wasn't just an apartment, it was a sanctuary we curated together. Or so I thought. Our home was purchased with a significant down payment, $150,000 to be exact, from an inheritance left to me by my grandmother. It was the nest egg she'd wanted me to have, a foundation for my future. I poured it and my heart into creating a space that felt like us: warm walnut floors, walls the color of a misty morning, and shelves filled with books whose covers I'd designed. It was my history and our future, all under one roof. Life felt stable, ordered, and deeply, contentedly happy. But a foundation, I would soon learn, is only as strong as the ground it's built upon. The hospital air, a constant, sterile hum scented with antiseptic, had been my world for 4 days. A necessary surgery for endometriosis, a condition I'd battled quietly for years, had left me feeling hollowed out but hopeful. The doctors, pleased with my progress, decided to release me a day early. A small, unexpected gift. "Go home, Alara," Dr. Matthews had said, her smile kind. "Rest, relax, and let your husband spoil you." The thought of Julian was a beacon. I imagined surprising him, walking through our front door a day sooner than he expected. I pictured the look of delight on his face, the way his arms would wrap around me, pulling me into the familiar safety of his embrace. I craved the simple comforts of our life: the scent of the Diptyque Beige candle he knew I loved, the weight of our thick wool blanket on the couch, the low murmur of a jazz record playing as we talked. The taxi ride from the hospital felt like a journey between two worlds. The city slid by my window, a watercolor painting of muted greens and grays under a sky-threatening rain. The streets of the Pearl District were slick and shining, reflecting the soft glow of gallery lights and the warm interiors of bustling cafes. I paid the driver, my voice a little weak, and carefully pulled my small overnight bag from the seat beside me. Each of the 24 steps up to our third-floor condo felt like a step back toward myself. My key slid into the lock with a familiar, satisfying click. "Julian? I'm home," I called out, my voice full of a light, happy tremor. The silence that answered was immediate and absolute. It wasn't the peaceful quiet of an empty home. It was a heavy, watchful silence, thick with something I couldn't name. The air felt still, holding its breath. Normally, at this hour, I'd hear the rhythmic tap-tap-tap of his keyboard from his home office, a sound as comforting and constant as a heartbeat. But there was nothing. I set my bag down, the soft thud echoing unnaturally in the entryway. I walked into the living room. The evidence of his day was scattered about like breadcrumbs: a copy of the Wall Street Journal draped over the arm of our leather Eames chair, a half-drunk mug of coffee growing cold on a coaster, his laptop open on the coffee table. A knot of unease tightened in my stomach, a cold counterpoint to the dull ache from my incision. Something was wrong. The feeling was visceral, an instinct older than thought. Instead of turning toward the kitchen, my feet carried me down the hallway, toward our bedroom. The door was closed, but not quite latched. A thin sliver of warm, intimate light bled from beneath it, cutting through the dimness of the hall. My heart began to hammer against my ribs, a frantic, trapped bird. My hand, slick with a sudden, cold sweat, trembled as I reached for the doorknob. I pushed the door open, and the world stopped. It didn't shatter. It didn't explode. It simply ceased to move, to breathe, to exist in any way I had ever known. There, in our bed, our beautiful, king-sized bed with the soft linen sheets we'd picked out together at Restoration Hardware, the bed where we'd whispered dreams and weathered fevers and made love under the pale moonlight streaming through the window, was Julian. And he was not alone. He was wrapped in the arms of another woman, her blonde hair a stark, foreign spill against our deep blue pillows. They were laughing, a low, private murmur that was so achingly familiar it felt like a physical blow. For a fraction of a second, my mind refused to process the scene. It was a glitch in the matrix, a dream I would wake from. This is not my home. This is not my husband. This is not my life. Then, Julian's eyes, still crinkling with laughter, lifted and met mine. The transformation was instantaneous and horrifying. The lazy, carefree intimacy vanished, replaced by a raw, animalistic panic. His body went rigid. The color drained from his face, leaving behind a waxy, slack-jawed mask of shock. The woman beside him, sensing the shift, turned her head. Her eyes widened, and a small, startled gasp escaped her lips as she scrambled to pull the crisp white sheet up to her chin, a futile gesture of modesty in a moment stripped of all dignity. I didn't scream. I didn't cry. A strange and terrible calm descended upon me, a cold, clear stillness that felt like the eye of a hurricane. Inside, something fundamental had snapped. It was the fine, invisible thread of trust that had been the warp and weft of our shared existence for 8 years. In the space where it had been, there was now a profound and hollow void. The love I felt for him, the sense of safety he represented, didn't just fade, it evaporated, leaving behind an icy, crystalline resolve. Without a single word, I turned. My movements felt robotic, detached, as if I were watching a character in a film. I walked back down the hallway, past the open laptop and the cold coffee. I picked up my bag from the entryway. I opened the front door, stepped out into the hallway, and pulled it shut behind me. The click of the latch was the only sound. It was the sound of an ending. He didn't call out my name. He didn't follow. He remained in that room, in that bed, with his silent, stunned accomplice. He must have been expecting a storm, shouting, accusations, tears. A drama he could navigate, manipulate, and ultimately control. My silence, I think, was a weapon he had no defense against. It was a solid, impenetrable wall he had just slammed into at full speed. Outside, the cool, damp Portland air felt like a baptism. It washed over my face, sharp and clean, and for the first time since opening that bedroom door, I took a full, deep breath. The scent of wet pavement and the distant perfume of late-blooming roses from a neighbor's balcony grounded me, pulling me back from the precipice of a complete collapse. My legs began to move, carrying me away from the building, away from the life I had just left behind. I had no destination. I just knew I had to keep moving, to put distance between myself and the wreckage. My hands shook so violently I could barely unlock my phone. I scrolled through my contacts, my thumb hovering over one name. Maya. Maya wasn't just my best friend, she was my anchor. We'd met in a pottery class years ago, 2 transplants to the city, and had bonded over our shared love for rainy days and strong coffee. She was a family law attorney, a brilliant, fiercely loyal woman whose calm demeanor belied a will of steel. She was the one person I knew I could count on, no matter what. Her voice, when she answered, was warm and familiar. "Elara, you're out. How are you feeling, sweetie?" "Maya," I managed, my voice a thin, reedy thing I barely recognized. I need you." The warmth in her voice instantly sharpened into concern. "What is it? What's wrong? Are you okay?" "No," I whispered, the single word cracking in the middle. "I'm not okay. Can I come to your place?" "Of course," she said, without a flicker of hesitation. "I'm in Laurelhurst. Come right now. I'll leave the door unlocked." I hailed a taxi, the yellow light a beacon in the gathering dusk. As I gave Maya's address, I sank into the back seat, my body trembling with a combination of shock and surgical tenderness. The city lights blurred into long, impressionistic streaks through the rain-spattered window. The image of Julian's face, first the careless joy, then the stark terror, was burned onto the inside of my eyelids. I squeezed them shut, fighting back the tears that threatened to fall. I couldn't break. Not yet. I had to hold on until I reached Maya. I had to hold on to myself. Maya's apartment was a sanctuary. Nestled on a quiet, tree-lined street in Laurelhurst, it was the antithesis of the sleek, modern aesthetic Julian and I had cultivated. Her space was warm, lived in, and vibrant. Bookshelves overflowed, spilling their contents onto every available surface. Lush, green plants cascaded from macrame hangers, and the air was fragrant with the scent of beeswax and old paper. It was a home built for comfort, not for show. She was waiting for me just inside the door, her face a canvas of worry. She took one look at my pale, shattered expression and enveloped me in a hug that was both strong and gentle. She didn't press for details. She simply held me, letting me absorb her strength. "Come on," she said softly, leading me to a deep, plush velvet couch. "Sit. I'll make you some tea." She returned a few minutes later with a steaming mug of chamomile, its floral scent a small comfort. She sat beside me, not speaking, just being present. Her quiet solidarity was exactly what I needed. For a long time, I just sat there, clutching the warm mug, the words lodged in my throat like stones. To say them out loud would be to give them form, to make the nightmare irrevocably real. Finally, I took a ragged breath. "I went home," I began, my voice barely a whisper. I wanted to surprise him. And then the story came tumbling out, a torrent of halting, painful words. I described the quiet apartment, the open bedroom door, the look on his face. With each detail I recounted, I felt the sharp edges of the memory cutting into me again. I told her about the silence, the coldness that had flooded me, my mechanical exit. Maya listened without interruption, her dark eyes filled with a potent mixture of profound empathy and a slow-burning fury that she held carefully in check. When I finally fell silent, the story told, she moved closer and wrapped her arms around me again. "Oh, Alara," she murmured into my hair. "I am so sorry. No one should ever have to go through that. But you are so much stronger than he is. You're going to get through this. I promise. And I will be right here with you." Her words broke the dam. The tears I had been holding back since I'd stepped out of that apartment finally came. A wave of gut-wrenching sobs overtook me, shaking my entire body. It was the sound of a heartbreaking of an 8-year-long dream dying. Maya just held me, stroking my back, letting me grieve the loss of the man I thought I knew and the life I thought I had. When the storm of tears finally subsided into shuddering breaths, she pulled back slightly, her expression gentle but resolute. "Okay," she said, her voice shifting from comforting friend to sharp-minded lawyer. "What do you want to do now?" I wiped my eyes with the back of my hand. "I don't know," I said honestly. I want to feel safe again." "You will," Maya said, her conviction unwavering. "But to do that, you need to take back your power. You can't let him control this narrative. You need to protect yourself. Financially, emotionally, physically." I looked at her, my own resolve beginning to flicker to life in the ashes of my grief. "The condo," I said, my voice gaining a bit of strength. "The down payment was my inheritance. My name is the primary on the title and the mortgage." A spark lit up in Maya's eyes. "Good. That's our fortress. First thing tomorrow morning, we build the walls. We're going to call your bank, freeze your credit cards, and revoke his access to any joint accounts. Then we're calling a locksmith. That home is your sanctuary, Alara. He desecrated it. We're going to cleanse it and make it yours again." A wave of profound gratitude washed over me, a fragile warmth in the cold landscape of my shock. "Maya, thank you," I whispered. "I couldn't do this without you." She gave me a small, fierce smile. "You wouldn't have to. That's what friends are for. We're a team. Now, you're going to sleep in my guest room, and tomorrow we go to war." Sleep, of course, was a distant country I couldn't seem to reach. Lying in the quiet darkness of Maya's guest room, My mind replayed the scene in our bedroom on a torturous loop. Julian's face. The stranger in our bed. The casual intimacy that had preceded my arrival. How long had this been going on? Had our whole life been a carefully constructed lie? Every anniversary dinner, every shared smile, every "I love you" was now suspect, tainted by this new, ugly reality. The question was a physical ache, a gnawing cancer in my soul. But beneath the pain, a new feeling was taking root, a cold, hard determination. He would not break me. I woke the next morning to the soft gray light of another Portland dawn filtering through the window. The grief was still there, a heavy stone in my chest, but the shock had receded, leaving behind a sharp, clear focus. I was not a victim to be pitied. I was a woman who had been wronged, and I was ready to fight back. Over a breakfast of toast and strong black coffee in Maya's sunny kitchen, I made the first call. My voice was calm and steady as I spoke to the representative from Pacific Crest Bank. I instructed her to freeze all my credit cards and, most importantly, to remove Julian's access to our joint savings account, an account that held a significant year-end bonus I had recently received from my work. Each directive was a quiet act of liberation, a brick being laid in the foundation of my new, independent life. I knew Julian's fury would be volcanic when he discovered he was cut off, but his anger was no longer my problem to manage. Next, I turned my attention to our home. My home. The thought of it, once a source of comfort, was now a source of deep pain. But it was mine. Maya had called it my fortress, and I would defend it. I found a highly rated company online, Rose City Lock and Key, and scheduled an appointment for that afternoon. I need the most secure deadbolts you have, I told the dispatcher, my voice firm. And I need it done today. Maya drove me back to the Pearl District. The city felt different now, its familiar landscape seen through a new lens of betrayal. As we pulled up to my building, a tremor of fear ran through me, but I pushed it down. I would not be afraid in my own home. Inside, the silence was still there, but it felt different now. Less menacing, more empty. I systematically avoided the bedroom. Instead, I went to Julian's closet and began to pack. I worked with a detached, methodical efficiency. I folded his expensive dress shirts, rolled his designer jeans, and placed his polished Italian leather shoes into a large suitcase. I packed his toiletries from the bathroom, his watch from the nightstand, his papers from the office. I was not being vindictive. I was being surgical. I was excising him from my life, leaving no trace behind. The locksmith, a kind, middle-aged man with gentle eyes, arrived precisely on time. He worked quickly, his movements sure and practiced. As he replaced the old lock with a gleaming, new high-security deadbolt, I felt a tangible sense of relief. When he handed me the new set of keys, they felt heavy and solid in my palm. They were the keys to my fortress, to my future. "All set, ma'am," he said with a respectful nod. "Nobody's getting through that without one of these." After he left, I dragged Julian's 2 large suitcases and his briefcase into the hallway outside our front door. I set them down neatly, a silent, unequivocal statement. He was no longer welcome here. That evening, I sat on my couch, wrapped in a blanket, listening to the rain begin to fall outside. I had expected to feel triumphant, but instead, I just felt a profound, aching sadness. At precisely 6:15 p.m., I heard the elevator ding, followed by footsteps in the hall. I heard the scrape of a key against the new lock. A pause. Another, more forceful attempt. Then, the knocking began. "Alara? Open the door. What the hell is this?" His voice was laced with confusion and irritation. I remained silent, my heart pounding. "Alara, I know you're in there. We need to talk about this. This is ridiculous." The knocking grew louder, more insistent, turning into angry pounding. His shouts echoed in the hallway, the carefully polished veneer of the successful financial consultant cracking to reveal the frantic, entitled man beneath. I could hear a neighbor's door open and then quickly shut. Defeated, he eventually fell silent. I heard a heavy sigh, the sound of him slumping against the door. He was powerless, and he knew it. He had grossly underestimated me, assuming my quiet nature meant I was weak. He had never understood that my silence was not an absence of strength, but its source. The truth, when it came, was far uglier than I could have ever imagined. A few days later, Maya received a call from a friend of hers, a paralegal who worked at a different downtown law firm. One of their partners, it turned out, was Julian's lawyer. "You're not going to believe this," Maya said, her voice tight with rage as we sat in her office, the city lights twinkling below us. "My friend was preparing some documents and saw your names. Julian hired this lawyer 2 months ago, Alara. Before your surgery." The room tilted slightly. "What? Why?" "He was planning to divorce you," Maya said, her words landing like stones. "But he was waiting for something. He told his lawyer he wanted to wait until after you'd made the final mortgage payment on the condo. The payment you were planning to make with your year-end bonus." The coldness that had protected me on the day of the discovery returned, more intense than before. It wasn't just a betrayal of our marriage vows. It was a calculated, predatory plan. He had been playing the long game, waiting for my money, my inheritance, my hard-earned bonus, to fully secure our primary asset. Then he would have filed for divorce and, under Oregon law, laid claim to half of its considerable value. My love and trust hadn't just been betrayed, they had been used as strategic components in a financial scheme. "He was lying to me every day," I said, the words tasting like ash. "Telling me he loved me, holding my hand while I was scared about the surgery, all while planning to strip me of my security. The most disgusting part?" Maya continued, her eyes flashing. "He was telling his mistress, her name is Amber, by the way, that the divorce was almost finalized, that you were the one being difficult. He was weaving 2 separate webs of lies. I thought of all the times he'd complimented my work ethic, encouraged my career. It wasn't support, it was an investment strategy. He hadn't been cheering me on, he had been watching his asset grow. He thought I would fall apart," I said, a new, steely defiance hardening my voice. "He thought I'd be so devastated by the affair that I'd be easy to manipulate through the divorce. He never expected me to lock him out and freeze the accounts first." "You didn't just turn the tables, Alara," Maya said, a proud, fierce smile on her face. "You flipped the whole damn table over. Now, we're going to make sure he doesn't get a single splinter." The divorce proceedings were swift and brutal, but Maya shielded me from the worst of it. She handled every call, every email, every threatening letter from his lawyer. The evidence of his premeditated financial deception was overwhelming. In the end, he was left with nothing but his suitcases and his shame. The condo was legally mine, free and clear. But I couldn't stay there. The beautiful rooms were haunted by ghosts, the ghost of the man I thought he was, the ghost of the life I thought we had. The view of the river no longer brought me peace, it only reminded me of the lies that had unfolded before it. "I have to sell it, Maya," I told her one afternoon. "It's not a home anymore. It's just a property. I need to let it go to move on." She understood completely. The sale went through quickly, and the profit, combined with my savings, gave me a new, unencumbered foundation. One built not on a shared dream, but solely on my own strength and resilience. I found a small, charming cottage for rent in the Selwood neighborhood, a place with a sprawling garden and a detached studio that was perfect for my work. I filled it with things that were unequivocally mine, mismatched pottery from local artists, warm, colorful textiles, and books, so many books. I painted the walls a cheerful, sunny yellow. It was a space that felt like a deep, cleansing breath. For months, I poured myself into my work and my healing. I took long walks along the river, reclaiming the landscape for myself. I spent weekends hiking in the lush green forests of the Columbia River Gorge, feeling small against the vastness of nature, my own problems shrinking in scale. I was rediscovering the quiet, observant girl from Nebraska, and I was learning to love her fiercely. One rainy Saturday, I wandered into a small, independent bookstore I'd never noticed before. The air inside smelled of old paper and brewing tea. The man behind the counter had kind eyes and a gentle smile. His name was Leo. He was a ceramicist who sold his beautiful, earthy pottery in a small corner of the shop. We started talking about books, and then about art, and then about life. It wasn't a whirlwind romance. It was a slow, quiet unfolding, a friendship built on shared passions and mutual respect. He knew my story, and he never judged. He simply offered a steady, quiet presence, a safe harbor where I could be myself, scars and all. With him, I learned that true intimacy isn't about grand gestures or exciting adventures. It's about the quiet moments, the shared silences, the feeling of being truly seen. A year after I closed the door on my old life, an envelope arrived in the mail. It was a simple cream-colored envelope, my name and address written in Julian's familiar, elegant script. My first instinct was to throw it away unopened. But curiosity and a sense that this was the final chapter made me pause. I sat in my sunny kitchen, a mug of tea warming my hands, and opened it. It was a single-page letter. "Alara," it began. "I know there are no words that can undo the damage I caused. For a long time, I tried to justify my actions, to blame you, to blame the world, to blame anyone but myself. My anger at you for locking me out was just a cover for the profound shame I felt. I write this not to ask for your forgiveness, because I have no right to it. I write this to apologize. I betrayed your trust, your love, and your goodness in the most cruel and calculated way. I was a coward, driven by greed and insecurity. The life we built was real to me, at one time, and my greatest regret is that I was the one who burned it to the ground. I hope, one day, you find the happiness you have always deserved. Julian." I read the letter twice. The tears that came this time were not tears of pain or anger, but of a quiet, somber release. His apology didn't fix what was broken, but it was an acknowledgement, a final, necessary truth. I folded the letter and placed it in a drawer. I didn't need to respond. His peace was his own journey to find. I had already found mine. Looking out my window at the garden, where the first crocuses were pushing their way through the damp earth, I felt a sense of profound peace. The scars of Julian's betrayal were still there, pale, silvery lines on my heart, but they no longer ached. They were a part of my story, a testament to the fact that I had been broken and had healed myself. I had learned that true strength isn't about never falling, it's about how you rise. And I had risen.